Richard.
Brilliant, and I am as well, and I think that's probably a good starting point actually for anybody tuning in, to maybe give a little bit of background to my experience of Kim and Michael, and why I was so keen to offer to host this. So for those of you who don't know the relationship, 10 years ago this year, or right at the end of 2003, Kim hired me to work with her in Kaizen, and you know, I can honestly say that I'm lucky enough to have this successful business now, really largely because of Kim. So being one of my gurus for well over a decade now, and as well as being, you know, the MD of a really successful business and voted one of the top 6 most influential people in learning in the world. Kim also has this magic for getting groups to fall in love with each other. That's one of I think it was Alistair, who was one of our colleagues, said that years ago. Kim, how is it that you get groups to fall in love with each other? And having been back as a participant on our groups recently, I saw it happening all over again. So so you know, there is definitely something to be learned from Kim that is worth exploring over the space of a couple of days, as is going to happen in August, because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And then, of course, in the first year with Kaizen, so in 2004, we did the equivalent of like a master's in coaching and consulting, and the absolute high point of it for me was a 2-day masterclass with Michael. And ever since then, he's been a coach and a mentor and a friend, and you know, as he has to film stars and rock stars and royalty and thousands of coaches around the world. And I say this all the time, for me, he is without doubt the best coach in the world. So when there is an event on that puts together 2 people who are, Kim hates this term, but who are considered to be complete gurus in the field, you know, I think it's not to be missed. And I guess the best endorsement I can give to it is that I've got 2 of my team members coming on it. So so I'm really excited just to be hosting this, let alone for the event itself. So I guess that leads to tonight, and those of you who are just tuning in, as I said to some of the guys earlier, feel free to post questions. We've already had some questions emailed in to me and to Kim and to Michael, so I'll probably lead with those first. If any of your questions don't get answered, then Kim's going to pick them up and answer them afterwards. So yeah, so the very first question that I guess comes to mind, and I'm going to ask Michael this first, is if you weren't running this, Michael, if this wasn't, you know, an event that you were leading, what about this would make you come on it as a participant?
So what would make me want to spend 2 days in a room falling in love with a group of complete strangers, learning about what it is that makes people tick, what it is that makes us come, what it is that connects us, what it is that separates us, how it is that we learn best, what it is that allows us to take a group of strangers and turn them into a learning community. What is it about that would? I think the biscuits and tea is why I would come. That's my thought.
Kim, I bet you're delighted I asked Michael first. Yeah, and what else? What else would make you go on it if it was somebody else?
Well, at the risk of sounding like the Mutual Appreciation Society, I'd go just because Michael's there, and if you've heard or seen him speak, you'll know how valuable that is. But also, I think because this is the first time, as far as I'm aware, and Michael, say if you know of anything else, that a workshop like this has been available. So very much aimed specifically at trainers, facilitators and leaders who want to get even better results with groups, but who want to explore doing that through the lens of the 3 principles, the inside-out understanding behind the human experience, what I call the heart of thriving. So rather than being jam-packed with a whole load of tools and techniques for facilitators, we're really sort of starting now to explore how an understanding of the principles can create miracles in all sorts of different contexts. And this context is about specifically working with groups. So if you're in that kind of role, and having sort of trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these people over the years, what people say to me again and again and again is, I love it, and some of the things I don't like, or some of the things I wish were different, were, you know, I sometimes still feel I need to put on a mask, have to perform rather than just relaxing and being me, or I struggle with kind of difficult, cynical, or challenging individuals in the group. I often get hooked by the behaviour of other people, or sometimes I just feel drained and exhausted by the whole experience. And several other things like that, you know, remarkably consistently over the last 25 years, facilitators and trainers say to me again and again. What I've discovered is that this understanding just completely dissolves all of that, so that we're able to kind of show up as who we really are. And that's what's fascinated me for so long. I mean, before I even heard about the principles, it's as if there's some kind of it's as if together we complete the words and music and dance to a song, and very often in group dynamic circles people refer to this as the field. And it's like there's some radio frequency which is normally surrounded by loud static, but when the conditions are right, the reception becomes really loud and really clear, and a whole new world of discovery opens up for us. And that's what we'll be exploring. And I don't just mean a new world in a spiritual sense, although that's true. I mean in the very practical world of form as well. You know, for me, that's the birthplace of true creativity, innovation, radical problem solving. I've just seen so many groups, witnessed so many groups quickly and easily overcoming things that they've struggled with, that the organisation struggled with for years. So that's why I'm excited about it. But I think it's the only thing I've seen that looks at it through that lens. Okay.
So I've got some questions about principles and you know, we've mentioned groups fall in love with each other and the field, and all of that sounds wonderful. But if I put my you know, my hard-hatted L&D or HRD's hat on, who's going to fund somebody to come on this, and I was saying, so that's all very well and good, but what are the real benefits to somebody coming on this? What's going to make it worth their pennies when they go back into their business? So, Kim, you know, if you were going to take a slightly more formal answer to it, what would it be?
Well, I kind of already mentioned a few of them. So, from one of the things that I used to do with my brain-friendly learning for trainers and facilitator masterclass workshops over many, many years was I'd send them a welcome pack, and I, you know, just to connect with them a bit before the workshop, and I'd ask them things like, you know, what would you love to be able to do? Where do you sometimes get stuck? You know, what would be 10 times better than that? Which a question I stole from you, incidentally, Michael, I think. And their answers, as I say, are so remarkably consistent, and they tend to cluster around the challenges, you know, like it's draining, it's exhausting. I get hooked by cynical, difficult people. I feel I've got to put on a mask. I feel I have to be in control the whole time, or I have to seem or look like I'm in control the whole time. So I'm never really showing up as the authentic me. And you know, I think our biggest asset as a facilitator or trainer or leader is showing up as us. Because by doing that, we kind of, I think we give other people permission to do the same. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's focused around the performance of the facilitator, which is, you know, I always say to people, in a sense, if that's where your attention is, you're looking in the wrong direction. our attention should be, out in the group. So the other kind of cluster of answers are about, why is it sometimes so challenging? Why, I wish my groups performed at a higher level. I wish they were more creative. I wish they were more resourceful. I wish they'd really collaborate rather than kind of, we'd have to wade through all this, politics and competitive infighting that goes on in so many businesses. Or to paraphrase Michael's wonderful recent TED talk, which is why aren't we awesomer? It's kind of like, why aren't my groups awesomer, actually? And for me, this understanding has kind of really transforms all of those. So, both in terms of kind of just relaxing into it as yourself when you're facilitating, but also just getting better results in the real world. Just kind of really touching that place where people, where we can create new solutions, new ideas that simply weren't available to us. When they're in that state of clarity, well-being, deeper connection, when they're plugged into their own infinite creative potential, that's where miracles happen in terms of solving problems, saving millions of dollars, making millions more dollars if that's what they're interested in, and really kind of, as well as having the whole thing be much more enjoyable, actually getting real results. Because that's what my clients pay me for. When they bring me in as a facilitator, it's not about some hippy-dippy love fest. It's about, this is what we need to achieve.
Okay, that makes sense. So again, you've touched on some of the things that are principles related, and I guess some people will come to this, Michael, I'm asking you this, some people will come to this having experienced or started to explore the principles and been in the conversation for a while. I think I know some other people who are looking to sign up who are essentially leaders of teams who haven't got any of that yet. So how important is it that people have some kind of understanding of the principles and the inside-out nature of experience before they even come, Michael?
Well, from a learning perspective, I don't think it's a bad thing. If you read a little something, you read a blurb, or you read Inside Out Revolution, or you watch a video, something to just give you a slight flavor for what we're going to be talking about, because it is a bit different from, when my first book came out, I was invited to go on a speaking tour. And despite the fact that I'd been leading groups for, at that point, 16 years, I thought, well, but I don't know how to speak. Like, I can lead a group, anyone can lead a group, but how do you speak? So I thought I should go on a course to learn how to do that. And a course that was recommended to me by a number of different people was and I will say the name because I think it's awful. It's called the Bill Gove Speaking Workshop. And Bill Gove is no longer with us, but the videos of him remain. And as a speaker, he was brilliant. And the video workshop starts with him speaking. And I'm watching him going, man, am I in the right place? This guy is amazing. He's so spontaneous. He's so alive. He's funny. He's fresh. And then a teacher comes out and says, over the course of the next 2 days, we're going to teach you how to fake all those things you just saw Bill do. We're going to show you how to pretend to be spontaneous by putting hiccups in your speech, and how to appear to be confident even when you're not. And, how to make the group think that you're grasping for your words even though you've done this speech 500 times exactly the same way. And that's as far as I got. So it might have gotten better. I don't know. But the truth of it is that what makes for a powerful group experience is people connecting with one another soul to soul, heart to heart, if you prefer, but at a deeper level than my good ideas to your good ideas. That's what we crave. That's why we come together. That's what we want. Now, to speak to Kim's point about the practical, it also is the state in which we have the most access to resource. We are at our best when we are coming from that deeper place inside ourselves, when we are open to that wisdom to pour through us and say just the right thing at just the right time, where one of the most common things, and it used to freak me out when I started teaching, and then I just thought, oh, this is just how it works, is the number of times people would come up in groups and say, how did you know? How did you know when you picked that example that that's what's going on at my home? How did you know when you picked that example that that's what's going on in my business? And the truth is, I don't, but I know that that's how it works. I know that there's some energetic field, some intelligence behind the system, that if you allow it through, it knows exactly what people need to hear, and it will put those words in your mouth when you need them. And really, the only obstacle is, well, I say the only, and then it's going to be like the Spanish Inquisition. Let's see how many I can miss. The only obstacle, two of our only obstacles are we don't know that that wisdom is there for us. We don't trust it. We haven't seen it often enough, even though anyone who's presented for any length of time has had it happen occasionally. We don't recognize that there's a principle behind it, a set of principles behind it, that when you learn those principles, you can see, oh, this is always available. And you can also see why it's not there, apparently, when you don't have access to it. So not only does it help you be at your best more of the time, it also kind of catches you when you're not at your best. It shows you what direction to look in when you need to recover, because we're all off our game sometimes. But being off your game, it means that you don't have to worry about, gee, I'm having a bad day, maybe I should cancel. Right? Most of us can't do that anyways. But it takes that off the table, because you start to see, oh, it doesn't matter where I am when I start. Because as soon as I throw myself into this field, as soon as I open myself up to this deeper wisdom, this whole thing is going to change anyways. And that's just a far cry from the old days for all of us, where we used to kind of get into state and walk on the fire and then teach the group. And it very exciting. And I really great fun, but not really all that much to do in my experience with people who come to your groups having an amazing time, learning at a deeper level, and getting better results. Nice. I totally forgot your question. I hope that answered it.
Perfectly. Oh, it reminded me, I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, and my level of understanding is surface compared to both yours. But one of the things I said was, when you start to realize that you're perfectly okay and they're perfectly okay at a deeper level, then it just changes a negotiation, it changes a facilitation, it changes how you deal with a group, because you don't have to deal with a group if you understand that they're all perfectly okay, and so are you. So I think that's the way you've described it there is perfect. So, but I guess again, Michael, just lead on from that, from your point of view, and then I'll come to Kim with this as well. If you've got people coming to this who at least think at the beginning there is a very specific problem, we've got a team who are broken, they don't get on with each other at all, and they need to be fixed, or they're facilitating groups who are always difficult. They're coming to it with something that they see as something hard and very much almost looking for a tool to fix it. Knowing the principles and the inside-out understanding isn't about tools. How can this help them with that kind of situation?
I was talking with an exec this morning. I don't know what time it is where you are. It's morning where I am. Yeah. And but 7 a.m. my time, something like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. their time, or somewhere else in the world. And they were talking about a situation with their team, which was like walking a tightrope. And they were, trying to get to a point in their language where they weren't, they weren't scared of falling off the tightrope anymore, because, so they really wanted to kind of have something, some strategy, something they could focus on that would would take their mind off the incredibly long drop to the ground if they got it wrong. And all I did, and I'm not suggesting that this would always work or that this was the right way to do it or anything else like that, but all I did was I said, you do know there's no tightrope, right? And it went quiet for about a minute. And then he started laughing. And that was pretty much it. Now, it's not the intervention, it's the recognition. When people start to see for themselves that they're making up, I don't mean there aren't real things going on, but they're making up their perception of the problem. Then instead of coming up with a better solution for a problem you're making up, you can just make up a better problem. And one of the ways you know you've made up a better problem is you know how to solve it. And so that's why understanding Trump's technique, in my experience, every time, because the techniques are designed to solve problems that you don't really have, except in the way that you think about what's going on. And it's like the difference between, you know, do you want to come on a course that helps you get better at navigating in the dark, or do you want to come on a program that shows you where the lights are? That's the difference. Nice.
Kim, I'd love to hear your answer to the same question. If you've got anything different to say, you know, if I was saying, yeah, how do I know this isn't going to be some kind of hippy dippy love fest where we all hug trees for a bit and sit around in a circle?
It is going to be.
I swear a lot.
Yeah, I swear a bit as well. Yeah, there's a. I mean, I really loved what Michael just said. It's so often people say to me, you know, I wish. So fascinating to me how much and I've only seen this in the last few years, how much as a culture we're obsessed with, you know, the techniques, the tools from out there, because I'm so worried I'm going to not get it right. So therefore, I have to gather to me all of this, you know, all of these tools, and again, I think I probably pinched this from you, Michael, as I have so much, but you know, it seems to me out now that our brains work much more like a browser than a hard drive, and that means that you can rely on that infinite intelligence behind life, but it seems to be like a just-in-time system. So you know, you get it when you need it, and as we become, once we understand that our feelings are only ever coming from one thing, which is our thinking, once we know that, our minds seem to slow down and we become more and more plugged into that innate wisdom and clarity. And there's a kind of there's an effect that has in groups that, as Michael said, you know, very much in the practical world of form, I've so often seen this, especially recently, where groups will come together to solve a particular challenge, and once they get even a glimpse of this understanding, they realise that the problem isn't the problem they've been thinking of. The problem is their relationship with the situation, and actually, if there is a real problem, it's not that one, it's something else that's actually kind of almost the root cause of it. But so very often it's not about, success isn't about to what extent have we cracked this problem. It's just that that's not the problem. And then that frees people up. There's a kind of a revitalizing effect where they realize that they can create, you know, because they're the artists, they're the paintbrush. They can actually create a new, a whole new world at work, which is just it's like there's this infinite source of wisdom and creativity and fresh ideas, insights, and that tap is always on. But a lot of people, even most people, I'd say, that I work with, just because they're not fully present, they're up in their heads, they're perhaps less connected than is natural to be. So it's like they've got their foot on, there's this hose pipe with all of this wonderful stuff, but they've got their foot on the hose all the time, so they get like a dribble or nothing at all. So for me, it's just knowing that whenever more than, and I think it was I think Queen Margareta from Denmark, I may have got this wrong, but she once said that perhaps every single war that humans have had has come about because of a conversation that should have happened but didn't happen. So so we can all see the kind of how much this connection in groups matters, how important it is, and it's kind of in an organisation, in a business sense, it just kind of raises the whole platform about what's possible. People see things that they would never have occurred to them to see before when they're in that place. And so for the facilitator, for me, I used to think that I got these fantastic results because of what I did, because of my skills and my expertise and all of that. And by the way, I would say if you're thinking of coming, everything, your the skills that you've already developed, that all still counts. It's not about giving any of those up or throwing those away. It's just realizing that that there's so much more that we can tap into. That energy, that field in groups just seems to create outstanding connection, joy, love, and results.
If I can jump in to say something else about that. One of the things that I think most people who've presented have had the experience of, I mentioned it a bit earlier, are those moments where it all slows down. And it's almost like it's going in slow motion. You can see what's coming a mile off, and you can kind of take it like the $6 Million Man, and you're kind of moving so much faster than the group that it's effortless, and it's easy. And it turns out that that's a function of both your state of mind and your level of understanding. So yes, the state you're in, the state of connection that you're in, the level of consciousness you're at, that you're teaching from, is a part of that. But also your understanding of what's really going on with your participants. And so one of the payoffs of this is that you will appear more skillful, simply because it's kind of like Superman doesn't really have any superpowers, but it's just the gravity on Earth is so much less than the gravity on Krypton that it looks like he can fly and is stronger than everybody else. You don't really have any superpowers, but when you have an understanding like this, when you have a grounding in this, your level of clarity is so much more than most of the people that you're working with, that you can do things that seem extraordinary to them, but they're not to you, because it's just doing what's obvious with what's in front of you. And that's the gift of this. It's not that it speeds you up, it actually slows you down on the inside. And the effect is that it makes everything on the outside look even slower too.
I guess the question that's coming up for me is, so you can teach me that in 2 days?
Well, I'm going to try and teach you that in 1, and then Kim's going to coach you through making sure that it is embedded in a really personal way for you and your situations and your specific things. Because it's something that, and this sounds, people used to say this to me, and I used to go, ugh, so I apologize now. You already have experience of this. You've already touched this, but you probably haven't connected the dots. You probably haven't seen that there are a consistent set of principles that explain why you are off with a group when you're off with a group, why a group goes left when you want them to go right, and why they follow you over the edge of the world when you need to take them over the edge of the world. And as you learn those principles, as you see those principles, because we can learn them in a minute, but actually see them, get them, the way you get a joke, yeah, you can do it remarkably quickly because it's already there. Now, there's still a learning curve, right? I'm still on a learning curve. Kim's still on a learning curve. And you know, according to Richard, we're really good at this. But right from the beginning, you're now on a different learning curve. You're now on a learning curve to facilitate magic and excellence and results. You're no longer on a learning curve to get better at putting one over on a group and hopefully talking them into whatever it is you're trying to sell.
Kim, have you got anything to add to that? I think the start of the question was like in 2 days, and then the good news is Michael's taken 1 day of it, so it's over to you to get us, you know, deeply embedded in us in 1 day now. So yeah, just say about a bit more about it.
I just got a short piece on that, which is, you know, as you very well know, Richard, I'm still very passionate about brain-friendly learning, and one of the things is about facilitating creation, not just consumption. So I don't see it as, I mean, when I'm in the same room as Michael, I always have very rich insights, but I don't see it as us teaching the people in the group how to. I don't see it as a teaching them how to. What we'll be pointing to is what happens naturally, what seems to happen naturally in groups when we show up from a different place and a different understanding, this understanding that Michael's been talking about. So we'll be creating a space where your wisdom and your insights help us all to learn more about groups. You know, how does how you're showing up either give or deny permission to others in the group to do the same. So for me, it's, you know, unless Michael's going to surprise me on the day, I don't envisage a kind of so here's the formula. You know, it's much more going to be a collaborative exploration.
Interesting. No, I think about the amount of times when I feel on it, when I do feel connected with the source, that somebody comes up to me afterwards and says, oh, you know, when you said that thing, and I know you meant me to have this insight, and I totally got it, and I can normally not even remember the thing they've said that I've said, and I certainly didn't have any intention for them to have that insight. So I guess again, people coming on and being onto something which is going to help them to create that without them even realizing, that seems pretty powerful to me anyway. So this question popped in, Kim, and I've been dying to ask you it, and then I'm still going to come to Michael, because I suspect his answer may be short. I'm not sure, but I know that Principles and Inside Out isn't about tools and techniques and processes, so that makes it a slightly different kind of event to design for you. And knowing you from days of war, when your designs would be really detailed, and you'd know by this point what you were going to say, like lots of points through it. Are you able to give us any flavour of what we're going to expect over the couple of days, Kim?
Well, as you know, because you and I have talked about this, the way that I think about workshops now is very, very different. So as I trust the infinite intelligence behind life more and more, as I hang out in that unknown more and more, as I really operate like I'm a browser rather than a hard drive more and more, there's very little design in that traditional sense. Because in my experience, nothing works as well as that magical genius that happens when I'm home and they're home, and the presence of mind is in the room. Nothing can be as elegant, as timely, as topical, as perfect for that particular group in that particular context. So it's kind of like where I am with it now is I'll do, I like to have a kind of a theme like we have here. And Michael and I guess, will have a conversation about who's doing the bulk of the sitting up the front when. But other than that, I just find any time I put into detailed design now, I think it's just a waste of time, frankly, because mind sorts it out better in the moment.
So at this stage, no agenda as such. And I laughed about it because I remember asking Michael about one of his designs on one of his workshops. I guess this was 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember the design for the 2 days. It started with 2 words. I can't remember what they were that he wrote on a flip chart, and then underneath the design said tea bags. And that was it for the whole 2 days. So
that was a good 2 days.
It was one of the best 2 days. But so yeah, I guess I almost not going to ask this question, but I will anyway, Michael, because my head's telling me to. So how do you see this playing out as you sit here now? What's the current year now? Acknowledging it might change by the time you get to those days in August.
Well, for this group in particular, it's like Kim says, we'll chat about it. We'll open ourselves up to get insights into this topic, to be inspired about this topic, to get a flow of fresh thinking about this topic, so that what shows up when we show up is relevant to the group, and we're not sitting there getting insights into skydiving while we're talking about groups. Now, that's also the design process we're going to be sharing. I'm sure Kim will be open about it. I'll be open about how my design process has evolved from the days when it used to be these detailed maps with 30-second markers on them of where I needed to be by which time, to this, what may sound to people like, oh, you don't prepare? The preparation means something different. The preparation is to do with how we show up. And once we've shown up from that place, then we're able to take what's in the room and create something that's never been done before from what's in the room. And that's always going to be the most alive experience. Now, the less time you have, in my experience, the more you need to put some prep in. There's an old saying, I would have made it shorter, but I ran out of time. I put more prep time, contemplation time into my 14-minute TED Talk than I do into my 9-month coaching academy. Now, the way that I think about it, and I'm just going to share it because I think people might find it interesting, is I think of it like planting slalom flags in a ski race. The actual path I take through the flags will be completely in the moment, completely as fresh as I can make it, as responsive to the snow conditions on the ground as I can. But by planting the flags, that kind of lets me know the course we're running. Now, the longer the course, the further apart the flags can be. So that's just a way that I think about it sometimes.
And I think it is. It's really relevant because, people listening and watching this, you're going to get something which is like genuinely bespoke to what's going on in the room that moment. You're going to get exactly the experience that you want. And also on top of that, if you're a facilitator who's used to having to spend a lot of time designing or preparing yourself, or if you're a trainer and again your design processes are really complex, then imagining going into something and not having to do that. or not having to do it in anywhere as much detail, and you'll get that learning from coming on these couple of days as well. So I think, again, that's something really, really valuable. I know when I first started getting into, again, more of this way of thinking, the freedom of not having to design in so much detail, but without it feeling like I'm just not quite prepared enough. That was, again, invaluable.
Can I say one more thing on that, which is, all the three of us do a lot of one-to-one coaching, and I think, all of these same principles apply there. There's something about this being magnified in a group. But also, I wanted to kind of mention, because we've left them out a bit so far, I wanted to mention leaders, because I'm not just talking here about a kind of a course or a seminar or a workshop where people have come to learn something. I do a lot of work with leaders who would just find so much of value here in the way that they hold their away day, their monthly meeting, their weekly meeting, their kind of the time that they spend with their teams, and certainly for what I call kind of pure facilitators, where there isn't an agenda. There may be a desired outcome in terms of the organisational result, but there isn't. Your job as a pure facilitator is to show up and make the whole process easier for this group to do whatever it's come together to do. So in those kinds of contexts as well, I think this understanding is invaluable, and as Michael said, it allows us to be everything slows down, but there's a kind of an agility and a flexibility to it as well. So you just kind of notice much more what's going on in the group. There's a sort of a heightened awareness, and it's like you just take a whole load more in through every sense organ, and just kind of come up with a perfect question or intervention or statement or whatever it is. But that kind of can't be designed. That can't be designed in advance.
Makes sense. So I've tried to. It's kind of just occurs to us. I've tried to almost take the slightly black hat role where what are the real benefits, and if somebody's new to this, but there'll be another group of people who are probably, again, listening to this and watching it, who've been through various inside out or principles related training, either with you, Kim, or with Michael, or with other people in the community. So for those people, then, what the group that I was with earlier this year with you, Kim, where we had some 3 brilliant days. What kind of grounding or insight is this likely to give people who have had some experience of this already? So yeah, Kim, you first.
Yeah, I think I can't really think of anything different to say than what I've already said, which is specifically the focus on groups, the focus on working with groups in a way that's more enjoyable, more fun, edgy, rich in learning. And for me, what makes that so endlessly fascinating is I think I love one-to-one coaching. I know all three of us do, but there's something for me about working with a group that has even more in it, and so for me it's bringing together the inside-out understanding into the context of creating an even more connected, clear, and group experience that gets real results.
Michael, guys who've seen you in the UK or elsewhere before, what might they get from this that they haven't seen or heard or experienced before?
Well, it's interesting, when you said that at the beginning about how you weren't aware of there being any other training like this, or I think maybe it was Kim who was saying, or workshop that dealt with this specifically. I think that's right. I'm certainly not aware. I mean, not that nobody's taught trainer training or anything like that, but just, for me, there's two aspects to it. It's one part of it is seeing how this is no different from any other conversation you would have. And the other is seeing just how much more becomes possible when you're working with a group as opposed to an individual. So if you've already got a grounding in the principles, but you might go, well, I've never led a group before. Like it was me, like I'd been doing this for 15 years, and then it was like, ooh, I've never spoken before, as if somehow that was going to be magically different. Well, in some ways it is different, but in most ways it isn't. And so part of it is to see both aspects of it. In what ways is this just a continuation and extension of what you've already been doing? But in what ways is it new? And how can that newness reinvigorate what you do and bring another level out of you, get more out of you, get more to come through you than maybe comes through in your one-on-one work? And I would, it's not just that it's practical to be able to lead groups, because you're going to run out of time at some point if you only work with individuals. But it's also, as Kim says, there's an amplification effect in groups. Whatever energy is there gets amplified. And if you thought that you've gotten loved up with a client, that sounds so wrong, but you've gotten very close and connected and had a real sense of deep human connection with a one-on-one client. When you get that with a group, it's exponential, and consequently, it's pretty rewarding as well. I also want to pick up on what Kim said about leaders, because I hadn't really thought about it like that. What she said, but it's dead right. It's not presentation skills that we're looking at here. It's the connection between you at the front of the room and the room, between you at the front of the group and the group. And as you really settle into that connection, you get really comfortable in that connection. You get willing to go deep in that connection, whether they're your employees, your team members, or a group that you're teaching. You'll find the entire dynamic changes. You'll find the level of thinking changes. You'll find the feeling in the group or in the room changes, and you'll find the results get better and better. And that's a real payoff across the board.
Nice. It's not presentation skills; it's present skills.
Wow.
And again, I think lots of the clients that we've worked with over the years, where either you've got somebody who was brilliant on the stage as a leader, they can do the inspiring bit from the front when it's the company road shows, but actually the way they are, how present and connected they are just on a day-to-day basis isn't helpful, isn't where it could be. Or flip side, actually, where people are really great at that piece and can be really present, really connected, but actually put them in front of a group or in front of a workshop or a launch of a vision, and just can't do the same thing. So again, I think this is given an understanding that will take care of that without them even having to focus on whether it's a company roadshow or a press launch, or whether it's a buzz session at the beginning of the day or whatever. I think it's a great way to think of it.
Yeah. And just, one of these things that I said earlier, that people always come back to me about what they sometimes struggle with. The very common one is as I said, the feeling exhausted by the whole thing, or getting hooked by these difficult, cynical, or challenging individuals. And of course, as you know, Richard, I don't believe there's any such thing. There's something about this understanding that just gets rid of all of that projection about the labels that we put on people, and you know, notwithstanding what I said earlier, if your attention is on, you know, how you're feeling and how you're getting hooked, then I think it's maybe in the wrong place. But this seems to, what's happened for me certainly is just really seeing people, really seeing the essence of people from a place of love, rather than fear or you know, ego, or I have to make sure I look good. And I'm not talking here about positive thinking or reframing, or even intellectually understanding why they're behaving the way that they are. You know, I mean, genuinely seeing them at their essence, beyond the behaviour, underneath all the horse crap, seeing and loving their innocence and their potential and their wisdom and the unique gifts they bring to that particular group changes everything.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, a two-part question to wrap up. Kim, I'll stick with you first. So, if you've got somebody who's watching this and going, right, I'm in, what's the best thing for them to do? And the second part of it is, if you've got anyone who's watching this who's still got a question that hasn't been answered, or a little concern, or something they want clarified, what should they do? Okay, so they can go to
www.supercoach.com/groups, and that will take them straight to the page about this particular workshop, and then they can sign up for a booking form and so on. And if they have questions, I think they can still post them here on the Google Plus page. But if not, they're more than welcome to get in touch with me. It's Kim at Kaizen, that's KAIZEN-training.com. And I'll be really delighted to you know, get into a conversation with them about their particular questions, and also you know, the extent to which this workshop is a really good fit for them or not.
Brilliant. And Michael, just as you look forward to these 2 days in August, what comes up for you as a final message for people tuning into this?
It's almost like there's two. We're talking to two groups of people, the way that you've set it up, the black hats and the white hats. I don't know, but you know, if you're somebody who spends time in front of groups for whatever reason, and you would like to be more effective, this is literally, in 25 years working in the field,
Michael, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I've lost sound. Kim, could you still hear him?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, do you want to go again, Michael? See if we can hear you. Oh, and it was just he was just the best thing ever. It's a clever ploy. Michael, do you want to try one more time? Okay. So I guess I don't know. Maybe we can find a way just to post whatever that last insight was to people tuning into this. It's a shame to lose it, but actually, in some ways, seems like a perfect way to leave it. So yeah, Kim, if there's anything you want to say to wrap up, then that's brilliant. Other than that, that's me with my question.
Just a huge thank you to Michael, and so excited to be working with him in August, and a huge thank you to you, Richard, for doing this. And it's been lovely, because you know both of us so well and know our work, and yeah. So, and thank you mostly to the people that have been viewing. Really appreciate your time, and don't forget you can get in touch. Kim at Kaizen-training.com, or go to the page www.supercoach.com/groups. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care.